Prime Minister Carney called it an H-1B visa. I wouldn't hold my breath on that being a real valuable category for entry to Canada.
You have to be very careful when you ultimately get your decision. If it's refused, you can't refile a new application.
Might be good news for Indian nationals. Canada is actively negotiating now with India.
The top questions that clients are asking in 2026 on SUV work permits and Canadian immigration.
I'm Howard Greenberg.
I'm Naumaan Hameed.
Today, Naumaan, we want to talk about issues, strategies, questions that are coming into our office, and we thought we'd share them with our audience. One of the questions that's been coming up is the after effects of the December 19th announcement. Interesting question about whether or not an application that was pending as of December 19th for a work permit in the SUV program, is that still alive and well, or did that die on the day of the announcement?
Fortunately for those individuals who submitted an application before the announcement, those cases will continue to be adjudicated, so there's no impact. However, you have to be very careful when you ultimately get your decision. If it's refused, you can't refile a new application.
But you can
consider reconsideration, potentially challenge the application, or the best approach is actually get a second opinion and see if you need to strengthen it, because you only get one shot now.
Okay, fair enough. So the work permits are closed for SUV as of December 19th, presumably. We'll see. More to say about that later. Mm-hmm. What are the alternatives? I mean, companies are still calling us. They're asking us questions about, is there another way? Is there another way?
For work permits, it really depends on the strength of the case. If you've been in Canada for a number of years, if you've been selling, you have revenue, you've hired Canadians, you're doing something very innovative, it's possible you may qualify for a C10. I've done that for other clients in the past.
C10 meaning?
Significant Economic Benefit Work Permit, which is a discretionary work permit where an officer can look at the economic impact, and if you have unique skills, could be considered for a work permit up to 3 years. I would say you have to look at that very carefully to make sure you've got a very compelling case and strong evidence.
Just out of curiosity, if you get a C10 work permit, is it possible you can use that work experience for Canadian experience class in Canada? Could you shift to another category of application?
Again, I think that's something you have to look at carefully. For example, is that individual, has he been presented as being an employee? Is he, in fact, overseeing other individuals in the business, or is he still self-employed? If he's self-employed, he could qualify under the Federal Skilled Worker Program. We know there's not a lot of those draws. If he's actually representing he or she that he is employed and he's got employment experience as of that date, then that could qualify for CEC. But you have to be careful because the PR application is suggesting under the entrepreneur program that he's self-employed. So again, a lot of thinking before you make that decision.
And interestingly, we've been getting a lot of calls in the last week or two on C10 and C11 self-employed work permits.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll throw one question back at you that clients have been asking about. Given the uncertainty with the SUV program, if I'm very keen on running my business and continuing, do I have any other options that I should start thinking about considering?
Well, we know the OINP program, the Ontario program, is going to have new streams, and we know that's coming relatively soon. So you want to position yourself in terms of your business idea, if you're going to go that route, or your skills, if you're going to go that route. They're condensing the streams to make it easier to follow, easier to select from. Those amended or revised programs are running in virtually all the provinces now. Ontario is not the center of the universe anymore. In fact, I think a recent study showed that most immigrants coming to Canada are now not going to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. They're dispersing throughout all the regions of Canada, so there's opportunities there. I think that you're going to get ready for the new business program that's coming in the latter part of 2026. What does it look like? I don't know. How are they selecting? I don't know. But there is something in the pipeline and it's coming.
And there are discussions with some of the provinces on a variation of an SUV program. As you mentioned, federal program, PNP business programs across Canada, and lots of rural programs. So there are options. a lot of development and thinking around policy right now.
There's going to be, as Prime Minister Carney called it, an H-1B visa. I wouldn't hold my breath on that being a real valuable category for entry to Canada. There will probably be limited numbers and a very narrow qualification criteria. So it'll be out there. Keep an eye on it, but that's not going to be a resolution to the problem that you can't get it out of the other categories.
Well, let me ask you this question. We see Prime Minister Carney's been very active with trade agreements.
Right,
Multiple different countries, pretty aggressive.
right.
What do you think that might mean for the nationals of those countries where there are trade agreements in terms of mobility opportunities?
Well, it might be good news for Indian nationals. Canada is actively negotiating now with India, and there is always a chapter in these trade agreements called Trade and Services, and Trade and Services has an immigration component to it, a fast track, so to speak, to get into Canada without having to do LMIAs. So whether or not there'll be quotas on it, like there are in some countries, or whether or not there'll be restricted occupation lists, time will tell, but that's on the table. And this Prime Minister is putting everything on the table. If we are going to let Chinese motor vehicles come into Canada, we're going to let everybody in.
So there could be a lot of change. And we know in some of the trade agreements, they even have a professionals list or a negative list,
Right.
where they exclude certain occupations, but
Right.
everyone else is in. I think the balance is, we know that temporarily government's trying to restrict the total number of temporary foreign workers. But like you say, when you're negotiating a trade agreement, you have to make some concessions. So it'll be interesting to see what doors open up.
So if you're a prospective immigrant, if you're somebody who's interested in Canada, there's a lot of things to think about. You really want to get yourself I like to call it an immigration buddy, an advisor in Canada who's watching the landscape carefully and can lead you down the right track to what programs are opening, when they're opening, and how to align yourself to those programs.
Right.
As always, at Greenberg Hameed, we're interested in your comments. We're also interested in any questions you have, and whether we can be of any assistance to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm Howard Greenberg.
Hi, I'm Naumaan Hameed.
I'm Howard Greenberg.
Hi, I'm Naumaan Hameed.
Well, today, Naumaan, I thought we would do something a little different. We would talk. Naumaan, another call from a prospective client. What's he asking about?
Can you make it ring again so I can hear what's